Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. United States Congressman Warren Davis has stated that there are some XRP holders out there who are hyper-defensive of Ripple as it pertains specifically to CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. But you know what my observation is? It's that U.S. Congressman Warren Davidson is hyper-focused on Ripple as it pertains to central bank digital currencies, and I don't know why. I just observed that over the last year and a half, however long he's been in the fray, and to any sort of notable degree in the world of crypto, he said silly, nonsensical things specifically pertaining to Ripple and or XRP. I don't know why. He seems, so far as I can tell, he seems to not be a big fan. I don't know for sure. I don't know what I'm supposed to speculate regarding that topic other than he must not be a very big fan of XRP or Ripple. He claims that he understands the difference between XRP and Ripple, but he conflates the two. And meanwhile, it's not as if Ripple is the only entity that is helping central banks or pushing for central banks to adopt their or create their own central bank digital currencies around the world. And that's why I don't understand why Warren Davidson has been so hyper-focused on this as it pertains to Ripple. And you know, when pressed, and fair enough, when pressed, he made a blanket statement that he doesn't care who's pushing for central bank digital currency. He wants every CBDC to literally be criminalized in the United States. I think it's a bonkers policy, but he keeps talking about this stuff, so you know I'm going to talk about it too. Now, all that being said, just to be clear, absolutely nothing against Warren Davidson on a personal level. I am going to challenge his ideas because I think he's just outrageously wrong, and I don't think that he's even how might you word, like ideologically consistent in his positions, and I'll explain why. But before going any further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And that's a picture of Warren Davidson on the screen right there. And you know, another thing that's kind of interesting, you know, if you think about all the risks to potential technologies, in this case we're talking about central bank digital currencies, if you talk about all the bad draconian things that could happen, you know, potential totalitarian implementations, you know, or takes on this tech, if you list all the potential bad things that could occur, I would agree with him that those are disgusting and we don't want them. But this goes back to this idea, it's just because something can be done with a technology that's bad, you just nuke the technology, like we don't adopt the technology because some people might seek to do bad things. Is that the right approach? Or do we just recognize that some people do bad things with technology and then address the people doing the bad things? Because that's what it looks like to me. So here is what Warren Davidson had to say, because he's been hyper-focused on Ripple and XRP lately. He has been. And then he'll assert that we're hyper-focused on Ripple. Hyper-defensive, actually. And so here's what he wrote. I'll admit surprised that some Twitter-active XRP holders are so hyper-defensive of Ripple's work on central bank digital currencies. I answered a question about the Torah's decision by pointing out XRP was finally recognized as not a security, but that some of Ripple's activity was deemed an investment contract by the judge because it pitches to institutional investors Ripple promised to do XYZ. Now, I gotta pause right there. Now, I'm not going to, I actually happened to speak about this topic within the last few days or so, and I'm not going to regurgitate everything that, not literally everything that I said. Here's a post that I shared on my channel, whether it was 2 or 3 days ago, whatever it's been. You can pause right here if you want to read that, but even if you choose not to and you didn't see that video, it's going to be okay. I'm going to make sure that you're sufficiently caught up to speed. I promise you it'll be fine. But I did want to highlight something that I haven't shared on the channel from the other day. Because I tagged Warren Davidson, and the congressman did respond to me. I wrote to him, and this was several days ago. I wrote, this is utter gibberish from Warren Davidson. Now, what was I referencing? I referenced him, and this is a quote from Warren Davidson. He said, in a Spaces event on X, formerly known as Twitter, he said, and I quote, "It looks like a certain amount of control being exerted by Ripple over how XRP can even function as a token within what Ripple's really trying to develop for the institutional investor." So clearly he doesn't understand what the hell he's talking about, which is why I responded to him stating that, and I wrote, this is utter gibberish from Warren Davidson. XRP has nothing to do with Ripple's central bank digital currency work with central banks. XRP ledger is a separate blockchain from any blockchain a central bank may end up using for a central bank digital currency. This is why we can't have nice things. And so he clearly conflated the two, and then he seems to just want to deny it. So he did write back to me, and he said, no, I clearly differentiate XRP and Ripple, as did Judge Torres. XRP is just a token. Ripple, however, is an entity. Right or wrong, Ripple's pitch to do XYZ for institutional investors was treated as an investment contract. Like some other entities, including the Fed, Ripple is working on CBDC. So there you can see he deflected. He clearly conflated the two, and then I called him out for it, and then he just said something else unrelated. That's what he did. He can do that, but I'm going to point it out on my channel when he does that, because he just did that. He just deflected when I pointed out that he made a big mistake, and he doesn't know what he's talking about when he's conflating these things. And then, bringing it back to his recent comment from just several hours or so ago, this is brand new from him. He then stated, I added that my concern was about Ripple's involvement in developing CBDC, because we were talking about Ripple, and that is one component of Ripple's pitch. Now, given that I am working to criminalize CBDC, rational people would understand I don't want anyone to work on CBDC. Not Satoshi, not Consensus, not the Fed, not even my mom. So, if you are a Twitter active XRP holder, do you like XRP because of Ripple's work on CBDC, in spite of Ripple's work on CBDC, or don't care about Ripple either way? And so, he's got a poll there. You could actually respond to it. I've chosen not to because I just don't care sufficiently to participate in this poll. And I only care about Ripple insofar as I want the XRP ledger to do well, so I like it when there are a variety of developers building on top of the XRP ledger. That's pretty much it there. But think about this. Think about the logical conclusion of this, because again, his whole stance is let's criminalize central bank digital currencies because the technology could be abused. It could result in a totalitarian state. Think about this, because what's the flip side of this? Well, I wrote the following. This is obviously true if you just logically think through what he said. I wrote, if a CBDC... let me take a sip here. Sorry, folks. If a CBDC existed that was open source, decentralized, and protected freedoms, Warren Davidson would still want it to be criminalized because he doesn't want a CBDC to exist in the US, even if it's good. Details be damned, he just wants what he wants. This is unreasonable. And so, folks, this is the logical extension of what he has put out there into the world. It doesn't matter what the specifics of a central bank digital currency are, even if it's everything you would want in a decentralized system, even if it's that, even if it mirrored what Bitcoin is, which he loves, he still doesn't want it. He does not want a central bank digital currency. It doesn't matter if it's good. He wants to shut down communication on this, make it illegal to have this. Forget the technological implications of all this. Forget any of the positive potentials here. No, he just doesn't want it. He wants to shut this down. That is completely irrational and absurd. And so I responded, and I wrote the following. People like me are just pointing out your logic is unreasonable. You want to criminalize technology rather than make sure it's used properly. It's no wonder so many people disagree with you. It's just as illogical as Elizabeth Warren, and that's the senator of Elizabeth Warren, of course, bringing up Bitcoin being used for illegal purposes. I guess we make Bitcoin illegal too? Of course you don't believe that, which is proof that you're ideologically inconsistent. So folks, think about the point here. If technology is capable of being used for bad things, then we just need to stop technology, right? Why isn't he being consistent here? So it's okay for Bitcoin to be abused by bad people. You still want Bitcoin, but people try to do really bad, horrible things with the central bank digital currency, and we just, what? We just don't allow the technology just in case? Or do you just go after the people that are trying to do the bad thing? And so I then wrote, on top of that, you made a factually incorrect statement about Ripple having control over XRP. If a central bank digital currency is open source and Congress makes sure it doesn't reduce freedom, what is the problem? Congress could reduce freedom via monetary policy, whether they're using a database or a blockchain. I don't care which technology the US uses. If it's used to reduce freedom, I'm not interested. The US could go full communist even if blockchain technology never existed. I want freedoms to be in place. and I want them to apply to our monetary system regardless of what underlying technology is being used. Make it illegal to do bad things and allow the best technology available for the system to run on. The concept is simple and right. And so, folks, I don't know how this isn't getting through to him. It couldn't be more obvious that I'm correct on this, and that he is obviously ideologically inconsistent with what he is arguing here. So, just to drive the point home, just logically think through this. What he's afraid of, it's the same stuff that I'm afraid of, in a general sense. Just separate of blockchain. I don't want totalitarian nonsense occurring in my country, or draconian this or that from the government. I don't want the stuff that's happening over in China to happen in the United States, and, connecting money to basically a social credit score or any type of that stuff. Like, that's very dystopian stuff. I don't want that. But my point is, all of those terrible dystopian types of things, if that's what you're afraid of, and I say, yeah, I don't want that to happen either, then how about we just make it illegal for Congress to do those things? I mean, he's the one in Congress, he's the one with the rest of his cohorts in Congress that get to make the rules. Make all of that illegal, regardless of the technology. Don't allow a social credit score and the way that China's do it, or there's that. Don't allow any of that crap. Just make it illegal. Then what's going to happen? Then it doesn't matter if the monetary system is based on a database or if it's based on blockchain technology. It's still illegal. And then if the government does the illegal thing, then we would be if it's open source. By the way, if it's open source, you would know if it's happening because people would be laser focused on this stuff. All the tech nerds out there would be watching this stuff. And so if the government starts to do something that rings of totalitarianism, then if it's a database, you stop them there because it's illegal. And if they do it instead on a blockchain, you stop them there because it's illegal. This is not rocket science. The technology isn't the problem. The people are the problem in this instance. How does he not get this? And that's why it's so laughable. That's why I made the point that even if we had a central bank digital currency that has none of the bad stuff that he wants and all the good stuff that he would like, he still wants to criminalize it. That should tell you all you need to know about his position. It's laughable. The idea is wrong. Nothing against him personally. His idea is wrong. It is bad. You don't outlaw the technology. The technology can be used for good. You push back against the bad people if they're doing stuff. And you know what, frankly, I think that I'm not the only one in the United States that feels this way. You always need to be vigilant against encroaching totalitarianism or onerous controls from a government. Like, you should always be wary of that. That doesn't change whether or not blockchain technology exists. You still need to be vigilant there. So do that. Like, can be that way. Yes, of course. I'm on board with all the fears, all the concerns. Yes, got it. It's not because of blockchain specifically. It does not make sense. And so I also wrote in a separate post, number one, so this is basically my suggestion here, just in a general sense. Number one, create a comprehensive list of everything you don't want in a CBDC. Number two, make those things illegal, regardless of what underlying technology is used. Database, blockchain, etc. There you go. Folks, isn't that a pretty good starting point? And then separately I wrote, if anyone in Congress says this can't be done, it's time for them to get a new job outside of Congress. And so that's a nice way of me saying, if you can't do it, then you deserve to be fired. If you're telling me that you can't create a central bank digital currency that doesn't reek of totalitarianism, get the hell out of here. You can't do that? If you're telling me it's impossible and you can't do that, then that's right. You shouldn't have this job. Absolutely not. And that seems to be a stance. Just criminalize it. Just criminalize. Why isn't he being consistent? Why isn't he pushing to criminalize Bitcoin then? Because it's used for bad stuff sometimes, right? All the nefarious intent. Isn't that what Elizabeth Warren talks about? Don't we hear those concerns also from Kim Jong-Gensler, right? It's not intellectually consistent. That's the right word to use. I think that's more precise than ideologically consistent. It's not intellectually consistent, and that's what bugs me about it. That's a big piece of this. And he obviously, before making these declarations, these bold declarations that it should just be criminalized, I don't think he thought it through or thought about additional reasons why perhaps this isn't logical and consistent. I don't think that he did. He's so plainly wrong when it comes to all this stuff. And to bring the point home in a separate tweet, I also wrote, the government already has control of our monetary system. Congress has the control. So folks, think about this. They're the same humans in charge, whether we have a central bank digital currency or we don't. The government's already in charge of the monetary system, the fiscal system. Period. That's not changing, right? So if he's saying that he's afraid of, this or that, totalitarian, that stuff creeping in, then he's, to be clear, he's afraid of the people in charge, including himself then. You do understand that's what he's saying, right? And not that he would want those things to be implemented. I'm just saying he's part of the machine, though, right? But it's Congress that's in charge. So if you want those things to never happen, then make them illegal now. And I also wrote, we need to never allow our government to become totalitarian, regardless of whether our financial system works via a database or blockchain tech. And so, look, as far as some of the specifics of what I think a CBDC should look like in the United States, if we ever end up getting one, I'm open-minded on that. But I'm just saying to outright ban it or say it's impossible to get one that would actually be good, you're just a failure or quitter person then. Like, it just doesn't make sense to don't tell me that's not possible. So I don't know for sure what it looked like, but just in a general sense, and this is what I'm thinking right now, and I could definitely, and I always reserve the right to change my opinion as I think through things, get additional perspective from people, learn more stuff. But for me, I'm just thinking, as long as it's open source, and for me, that's a requirement. If the code is not open source, for me, the answer is no. Period. If it's not open source, I don't want it. We need to have transparency. Otherwise, you can't have trust from people in the country. That's just a non-starter as far as it has to be open sourced. Now, as far as whether or not it should be permissioned or not permissioned, I don't see because look, the United States has monetary sovereignty, let's say, right? As any nation would over their own fiat currency. That's not going to go away. And so it's going to be centralized, but we already have a centralized system. That's one piece that wouldn't change. We just don't want the bad stuff that could be associated with it, like you'd expect to see in China. We just don't want that stuff, all the bad stuff, which would be illegal regardless of the underlying technology anyway. So I'm just thinking, just as like a starting point for discussion, I would just say open source. I don't think you're ever gonna see a CBDC in the United States unless it is centralized and permissioned. I don't think that's the case. And you can bring up the point that, okay, well, paper money, that's permissionless. And I would say, okay, that's true. But if you look at all of the digital transactions, none of that's permissionless. It's all permissioned, because whether you're dealing with a financial institution or the federal government itself, it's all permissioned and you don't control it. It is centralized. All that stuff is. So yes, it's true that you would have that with a central bank digital currency, right? If you're talking about a permission system, but it doesn't mean that you even have to get rid of paper money. Like, it doesn't mean that has to be the case either. Not necessarily. I'm just saying, going in this direction, have a strong focus on making sure that good is done rather than bad. Make sure all these things that are scaring you to death, Warren Davidson, can't happen. And maybe you got something there. But that would be the way to go, rather than just trying to criminalize the technology. What in the ever-loving hell is that? Useful technology, just get rid of it? I ain't having it, man. Sorry, I just respectfully disagree with this guy. And I don't get it. I don't know why he's so hyper-focused on Ripple. I don't know why he seems to not like XRP. Not that he doesn't have to like it. I'm just noticing that he said stuff over a bit of a period of time. And I don't think that this is intellectually consistent with his position on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which can and are used for bad things. It just doesn't make any damn sense for me. Sense to me, anyway. So I know that this is divisive, and there'll be a ton of you listening that say, rah, rah, you're right, Moon Lambo, I got it. And there'll be a lot of you listening that still don't find my position compelling. Hopefully, now that we're at the end of the video, you found me sufficiently compelling that even if you didn't start on my side, I hope that you found my position to be persuasive. And if you don't, that's fine. You don't have to agree with me. You're not crazy for disliking central bank digital currencies, but if you're going to persuade me, you better put down a pretty solid argument, because I'm not getting how the idea that, technology bad because people could use bad stuff for it. I just don't see how that's a winning argument. So if you want to try and articulate that and pull a Warren Davidson, good luck. But I haven't been persuaded at all by anything I've seen from Warren Davidson. The only part where I'm going to agree with him is we should be vigilant about encroaching tyranny always. But again, that's outside of blockchain. That's just in general. I would always say in general, and it's the same people in charge no matter what. It's Congress. So, all right, I'll stop yapping. You guys let me know what you think. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Lambo.